Hey everybody, my name is Andrew Davis and you are watching Season 3 of Conversations in Pop Culture, brought to you by my sponsors, Mix and Printing, the smarter way to print. I know printing your creative project can be confusing and stressful, but Mixam is here to make it easy. From their instant code calculator that lets you get as many quotes as you want for free to their 24-hour customer service support, Mixam is here to make sure your printing experience runs smoothly from start to finish. And right now you can choose from a range of premium printing options and materials, and the company has also printed so many successful Kickstarter campaigns, a bunch of them you even heard about on this very show, including 47 Furious Tales is printed by Mixum.
Yes, it
And
was.
obviously Sam writes that. So go check that book out, everybody. And they currently offer services in the United States, Canada, Australia, and the UK. And Mixum can print and reach your audience anywhere in the world. So if you're ready to print smarter, not harder, head over to Mixum.com. And right now they're running a promotion where listeners of my show can drop my name, Andrew Davis, on the message tab of a current order to get a 5% discount on their first order. And that is mixam.com. Again, type my name, Andrew Davis, in the message tab of your current order to receive a 5% discount on that order. Also, I know that a lot of people have Kickstarters going on. Inflation is tough out there. Things are going up. Bags and boards are very expensive. And BCW Supplies actually has a code with me where if you use Pop Anime Comics at checkout, you get 10% off your entire order off of everything. And so if you're ordering $500 worth of bags and boards, that's $50 that you save. And it is a commission link, an affiliate link. I do get 5% back, and that money comes back into the show. So you're getting a discount on everything you buy. You're supporting a business that I think is based in the U.S., and you're also helping this show out tremendously. And so it's a win-win for everybody. And I have my Kickstarter going on, but that's up there, and you guys can check that out later on. And without further ado, I have with me returning guest, Sam Quinton. So welcome back to the show.
How's it going?
I am good, and I'm very excited because a lot of stuff's going on. My Kickstarter's doing good. Mixum is with me for another 40 or so episodes, and you have a Kickstarter going on right now with Rayne of Ages.
Yeah, we're closing in on the 50% mark on day 8 with another, what do we got, 17 days left, I think? 16 days, something like that.
Yes.
And it's closing on the 28th of this month. But here's the thing. Mixum's printing this too. So, I mean, your sponsor should be happy about that. And actually, before we end, I'll actually show you a little feature on the Mixum site so that people can see one of the neat things about using them.
Yeah, no, and I'm going to be hopefully printing a book this year sometime, depending on how this Kickstarter goes. And I think that just so everybody's aware that I'm going to make sure that
I have a perfect title for your book. Where's My Money?
By a very poor professional comic writer.
There you go. Where's my money? You didn't wear a blue shirt today, man. I came out in the red shirt and everything.
I don't know if you know what comic this is referencing.
No, I can't really make it out. Sorry.
It's Hulk Annual.
Gotcha.
But enough about that, because I don't want to deprive, and this becomes an audio podcast. Hopefully, if we reach a certain goal. But I do want to talk about your book and not about money. So, what is the basic premise? And I'm sure you're sick of explaining it, of a Rayne of Ages for my audience and everybody I'm about to share it with.
I'm actually not sick at all. It's really an exciting book. It is the debut entry of me into writing for the whole bad girl meta of comics. So this came up with my co-creator Nick Capone, and Nick is a very well-known colorist in the comic industry. He's colored books for Image. He's colored books for Boom. Probably a dozen other companies that will not take that time to mention, but just all over the place. And of course, he's also colored for numerous other creators, and then he's done illustrations for me, everything from full-blown poster illustrations to down to doing page border art for books. He's done a lot of work for me over the last four or 5 years. And he's also a Kubert School instructor. So he's been a remarkable man to work with in the past. And when he approached me really out of nowhere, because he's like, you've been putting out books, and Sonopa's been doing a lot of books, and I really want to have a comic. He's like, I want to put out a comic and have it see print and have it get distributed and everything, and have something I can, have at cons. And I would like for you to write it, and I want to do like something kind of inspired by like Lady Death and Heavy Metal Magazine and stuff like that. And so we brainstormed a bit, and then we brainstormed a bit more, and decided to go with a fantasy tilt towards it, and came up with Rayne. And then I drafted up the first draft of the script, and we put it in front of the editor I hired for this book, which is Alexia Veldhausen, who's also the principal artist for 47 Furious Tales and the editor for our art book that we put out last year, which was Dungeons and Dames. And then we did some revisions, and we were off to the races. And in fact, yesterday we finished. Well, I say we. Nick finished the last of the work on the interior page art, because we had a couple of changes, so a few last minute edits on a couple of the later pages right as we were launching the campaign. And so the book is actually done with the interior art. All the covers are done. We are letterings this week and should be done by the 25th. And the campaign will end on the 28th. We plan to be ordering books on the 26th or the 27th, somewhere around there, again through Mixam. And then the day after the campaign closes, I'll be putting out the backer fulfillment survey, and we will begin actually distributing the digital copies of the book as results come in. So that will literally begin fulfilling right then and there. And then we should have the books in from Mixam probably around the 14th or the 15th. Just enough time for the money to come in for Kickstarter so that we can pay for shipping and everything. Very sorry about that, guys. I got a little bit of a cold. And get everything shipped out to everyone in February. So it's going to be a very rapid turnaround. The book is looking absolutely fantastic. And we'll actually show everyone here a little bit of that here in a few minutes.
Yeah, I got some photos ready, and I'm sure you have some stuff prepped up.
I have something more because, Mixam's been very good to me. Been printing some really high quality stuff. And so today I ordered proof copies, and I should have them in a few days. But in the meantime, I have the preview file actually sitting on my desktop right now.
So we're going to talk about that in a second, but obviously before we get really into the story, I am curious because one of my pet peeves, and I've been very public about it, and I don't mean to bash any creator because I know things happen. I know producing an indie comic is very difficult, but getting me books is something that when I back something, I'm willing to wait 2-3 months, but there are books that I've been waiting for almost a year now. Mm-hmm. And it's very upsetting. And what people don't understand is I'm not interested in flipping a variant per se, because that's not how I run my Kickstarter and my eBay business. In that sector, mm-hmm. What I usually buy on Kickstarter is not that. I'm looking to read stories. And it drives me crazy because one of the reasons why I go to mainstream is every month they deliver books to me on time.
Right.
And it's a problem. So what is this like for you? Because you seem to be getting a quick turnaround time and getting it into hands, and this way I don't have to wait so long for a story.
And full disclosure, we've been late a couple of times on campaigns. We had like Death Comes to Glenfollow was the latest. That was actually the worst case scenario, though. We actually lost the entire book file when I accidentally saved over it with the cover file, and it overwrote all of my backups as well because everything was linked, and I had to rewrite the whole book. So that was a couple of months late. But I mean, other than that, we're usually on time or within a month, But with 2022, we've got everything calendared out a very particular way, and so Nick was tasked to have it done on a particular day with all the art. We had all the covers done well in advance of the launch. And now it's just a matter of, turning it over and getting it lettered with Taylor Esposito. And honestly, to put things more of a fine point on this, where I've already ordered the proof so I can actually make sure we don't need any contrast adjustments on the file. The only thing left to do is just to swap out lettered pages for unlettered pages for lettered pages as they come in from Taylor. So as he finishes these, 5, 6, 8, however many he does on a given day, boom, 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 boom. Last day he has them, it's literally upload and order. So it's definitely one of those things where you're just like, wow, this is a really good position to be in. As a creator, I like it. And we always talk about, if you can get the book done before you launch, definitely do that. Sometimes you can't. Sometimes you've got a big book, or you've got a lot of production expenses, and you really need that Kickstarter to make those production expenses happen. And I can respect that, because I mean that's typically been my experience. But with this one, we were just very, very fortunate, and could line everything up and get it done in such a way that we can really turn it around. So with my experiences from other creators, I usually have been, I guess, very fortunate, because I think I've only got 3 Kickstarter comics that are running really late. Now, one of them, the creator has kind of vanished. I don't think anyone knows what's happened to him. The other, the creator is refunding everything, and I have a lot of respect for that man. He's always been top-notch people in my book. And then the third, the gentleman got deployed, and so when he comes back from deployment, we'll we'll hopefully get the rest of the comic in at that point. But yeah, everything else, I've been getting my books, so I've been really very happy. But I tend to look at projects that are in that state of readiness, or from people who have shown that they can do it. So people like
Yeah.
Brian Toledo, um, Madeline Holly Rawson, Mike Shea, Sam Johnson, um, Larry with Niobe Comics, of course, Max DeVille. Um,
That's something that I'm figuring out, is that, unfortunately, and I've been very, very adamant about this, is that I won't back a project if it's a year out, just because anything could happen in a year at this point. Where if you say, hey, I'm going to get you your book, I did a Kickstarter, man, I'm going to get it to you by next May is the expected date. So,
right.
for instance, May 2021, you'll have your book by May 2022. I really am not interested in backing that project because it's just too far out for me.
Well, I'll
I
tell you, there's a lot of creators out there who are very good about their timelines. One of the other top people I would put in that category is Mark Weisner, who creates Hilda and Richie. And Mark is one of these guys. He actually also goes by the pen name Max West, and sometimes I call him Mad Max, but that's just when we're palling around on Twitter. But Mark is one of these guys who is very passionate about his work, and he has a storytelling style that reminds me a lot of Charles Schultz. So I've found that I actually really enjoy his work. His art's very consistent. It's a very simple style. It is a lot of charm to it, and he's just really, really an impressive creator. He's actually live right now too. And then I actually just made the acquaintance of a very new creator here recently, who I'm very impressed by, and that is Armand Nassim. He has a campaign on right now called Lost Magic #1. Definitely check it out. Um, he and I had a meeting a few days ago, and actually uh, exchanged some information, looked over each other's books a bit. His book is fantastic. Highly recommend it. And so when you get to where you can have that kind of conversation with folks, where you can engage in that dialogue, and really really see all the efforts that people are putting in, you get this interesting gestalt where you start getting these recommendations, these suggestions, these best practices that start to surface. And so you hear these mentioned by people like Tom Hutchins and like Madeline Holly Rawson, and people who've been creating. And the thing is, I think that sometimes people kind of look at their success, people with 10, 20, $30,000 Kickstarter campaigns, and then think, oh wow, that must be really easy for them. And it's not. It's reflective of a lot of work. It's like the diagram of an iceberg. You really only see the tip, and what's holding it up is
I mean,
literally hours upon hours of work that
so
you put into it.
for all those people who are interested, I'm in the middle of my Kickstarter, and I think this is relevant where I have put a lot of work into it. I don't think people understand writing my copy took 15 hours. It wasn't easy
Mm-hmm.
building it out, and there's a lot of pushback from Kickstarter, and I don't want to go through that entire story, but my goal is 750, and there's a lot of effort in the last 11
Yeah.
days that I've been pushing hard. I mean, I have fought tooth and nail for that money. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm asking for very little, and it's not a comic, it's a podcast. But it's the idea that I think people don't understand. And I didn't understand either, where I knew there's a lot of work in producing a comic, but it's not just the comic.
Right.
People don't understand. And so I have an understanding now that I'm in this space. And I'm not, the skill to do $1,000 Kickstarter is not the same to do a $30,000 Kickstarter. I think it's
Or even a $5,000 Kickstarter. And here's the thing too, is like the funds that you're seeing on these, by and large, are really used for just the production of it. Like the goal we have for Reign of Ages, my comic that's on Kickstarter now, is just to get stuff printed and shipped, and to pay for lettering and the rest of the editing, and everything else for that has already been invested or is already being taken care of in my partnership with Nick Capone, because we're equal co-owners of this IP. So it's one of those things where getting things taken care of, doing the work, and it is work. Don't let anyone ever tell you any different. It's a lot of work to make a comic,
it's
or
even
an
going
RPG or a board game. It is a lot of work. And like to give you an example, like today, like I said, I ordered proofs, and the reason I ordered proof is while I have done multiple color copy orders from Mixam, I've actually never done a just plain black and white one, and I want to make sure that my contrast settings are right so that the print values are good, so that everything's very clearly legible. Well, ordering proofs is kind of an expensive proposition because you have to have it printed basically on the same settings that you're going to use for your mass production. So getting that done today, that took a little bit of effort. And you have to also have an investment of your time, and an investment financially is like always going to accompany that. And you really have to be committed to your creation. You have to have faith in it. You have to trust in it. You have to know that people are going to enjoy what you're putting out. The last thing on earth you ever want to do with crowdfunding creativity is come to that and saying, "Well, I need the money, so I guess I'll kickstart it, and someone will give me the money." Don't do that. Just don't do that. That's not going to do well for you or for your the people who are fans of yours. Create something that you truly believe in. Create something beautiful to the best capability you have, and then bring it to the world and say, "Hey, I did the thing. Do you want the thing? Let's get you the thing. It'll be cool." And then people will pick up your work and enjoy it. And I can tell you from personal experience, it is a whole another level of magnificent when you've created something and you ship it to someone and you get a message like, "Dude, I got my book already. This is awesome." And like, "Oh, hey, I like this. Oh, hey, I would have done this, but this is cool too." And then you get constructive criticism too sometimes, like, "Hey, man, did you realize you got two periods on line 27 on page 49? I did not." If I knew, there would only be one. So good catch, hombre. Go into the master file and fix that real quick. But yeah, it's one of those things where crowdfunding will just work you really hard. And so you've got to. I don't want to say you have to be a special kind of crazy. You have to be a special kind of committed.
Hold on, you cut out for a sec.
I said, "Where's my money?" I said, "No." I said, you don't have to be crazy to crowdfund, but you do have to be a special kind of committed.
One sec, something's going on. Just let me see if it's me. Yeah, it's like a weird beeping sound. I think it's coming from you. This is coming from me. Give me one sec. Sorry, everybody. Yeah, I don't hear it now. Yeah, I don't know what's going on here. Something's super weird. I don't know if anybody else can hear it. Yeah, it's like it's so weird. Just give us one second, everybody. Sorry.
That's really strange.
Yeah, I don't know. This is so weird. Anything could happen live. Okay, it's quiet now. And then I don't know what's going on. So unless it's me, it might be me.
Maybe some feedback from where I'm coming over your speakers.
That's what I'm trying to figure out. I don't know if you could hear me. I mean, do
Yeah,
you hear it or no?
I hear the buzzing. Yeah, it came out of nowhere.
Because yeah, I don't know. It's so weird. Just give me one second. Okay, it's right there, and then yeah, I don't know. This is so weird. So I don't know what's going on, but clearly we're gonna just make the best of it. I'm gonna hope for the best, right?
Yeah, that's weird.
This is so weird, and I don't know what's going on. And but anyway, sorry about this, everybody. I was gonna say I'm sorry, everybody. Usually this doesn't happen, and we're making the best of it. So obviously, even with Kickstarter, what I was just gonna say is that I am learning, and I've already gotten messages from people saying they're excited to be on my show, and it's very cool what's going on with that. So I completely agree, but I do want to back out of talking about the intricacies of Kickstarter, and I do want to talk actually about this story because it is a very interesting story. We have Rayne, who is sort of, the last surviving member of a fabled, and I'm sure you're going to correct me, the Rochellan.
Rochelle and Rochelin.
I'm probably not going to get the name right, so it's just I quit while I'm ahead. And they're basically sort of tasked with defending an ancient elven empire, and then she gets trapped for centuries, and sort of the empire fell, and a lot of stuff's going on with that, and then she wakes up in a new world that the thing has fallen apart, and now it's her quest to sort of fix it and survive in this world and do a
It's more
bunch of
about
crazy stuff.
discovering the world as it is now, and the heroic journey to discovery that lay ahead of her. We cover a lot in this about how it came to be that she was displaced across the ages, and there's a real big giveaway in the cover. So for everyone who's watching this, go ahead and check out Ring of Ages on Kickstarter, and you'll see the cover right there. There's a real big clue as to what had her trapped for so long right there on the main on that cover.
Yeah, and there's a lot of stuff going on with the entire cover, and obviously Medusa is sort of in there, or what looks like Medusa, and it's just one of those things where obviously that's going on, and you sort of went through a little bit of the inspiration behind all this, but the way this is going, and really why I'm drawn to this book is that you sort of stated where it's got a bad girl art feel to it, and even more Red Sonja and some Lady Death in there. And what was that like? Because you haven't done anything like this in this genre yet, and in this series, and a variety of other things going on with it. So, obviously, what is that like for you? Because this is a big step, and you're entering into Larry's world with Niobe a little bit.
Well, I mean, I get to reach into years and years and years of role playing game experience with this particular setting, and then tell stories that have a heroic bent to it with a real strong female protagonist, with a lot of inspiration coming from books like Lady Death and She, and then also, of course, maybe a little ElfQuest too, which is probably where the vibes people are getting are coming from on that. And it's also graphically violent for fantasy violence because I don't shy away from that. I don't glorify it, but I definitely don't shy away from it. So we've got some very graphic, scenes with swords splitting zombies open and other things that lay await for you in the inside the pages. The the thing about writing this was it was really, really a joy. Um, I enjoyed writing this just as much as I enjoy writing 47, which is saying a lot. So being able to put this together and working with such a fantastic team has made this one of the most pleasant titles I've worked on in the last 5 years.
So let's even talk about the violence side of things and all that stuff, because one of the things is that, and I don't want to get too political with all of this, but one of the things that I think is very interesting is that you're not shying away from a topic. And I feel that in comics, people like to shy away from topics, they like to play it safe. And with Kickstarter, you have a lot more freedom to go and tackle difficult topics versus Marvel, DC, Dark Horse, Image, and those places. And so what is that like for you saying, hey, I can go and actually have a book that shows violence, shows what war and, anarchy looks like, and I don't have to worry so much about being, I guess, quote unquote, censored by a big publisher, because that's something that obviously I'm appreciating right now in a lot of freedom and Kickstarter and those books versus other people. And I still read a lot of mainstream, but what is that like for you saying, hey, we can go into this topic and really sort of deliver what I think people want? Because I think people are getting sick of being censored and not having everything being watered down, for lack of a better word.
Well, I don't give much thought to it. I don't give much thought to what people will condone or condemn. What I approach in my storytelling is the story I want to tell. Um, there is a great deal of freedom between you, a pen, and a piece of paper. You can put anything you want there. Now, will people want to read it? That's what we find out. We find out after we put it out into the world and introduce it to folks. And so far, 111 people like it enough to pledge for it, and another 205 like it enough to get a campaign reminder for it. This may actually end up being the campaign of mine that has the highest backers by the time we're done. It might actually surpass Whispers of Persephone, which had over 200. And I hope so. I hope so. I'd like to put this in as many hands as possible. Um, but do I lay awake at night thinking if people are going to um, condemn me for showing what violence is like? Do I lie awake thinking if people are going to be mad because I killed off a cool character I created? No, because it's not done gratuitously. It has a purpose. It might seem gratuitous. There's a lot of very heavy fantasy violence in this book, but it's there because the time period is a time of anarchy in the class of an empire under this horrific event that unfolded. And being able to grant the reader a little peek into what that was like is actually very liberating. It's very, very rewarding to take this this scene, these activities, the chaos that you imagine happening in your world that you built, and bringing it to paper and then bringing it to life through sequential art is an incredible sensation, because you're basically taking the thoughts that were birthed in your own mind and sharing them with the entire world, for good or for ill. Now, will there be consequences with some folks? Will some people condemn it? Will some people, condone it? I think some people will love it. Some people will like it, and some people will say, maybe too much blood and gore, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with something not being to your liking. Um, but as a creator, when you're creating something, you have to be true to your story.
So to even go further into that, and this is something that I am figuring out where I do a lot of interviews, and this is just me, where I just had a deathmatch wrestler on right before you, and I'm not too concerned that my audience might not be into wrestling, and they might be not into deathmatch wrestling, and they may not be totally cool with what we're talking about and joking about it, having a very freelance conversation about putting somebody through tables and panes of glass. I don't wake up and I'm like, hey, if they don't like that episode, they could just turn it off and they don't have to buy it. And, I'm not too concerned about that. Or even going further, I'm not too concerned if somebody doesn't like my show at all. I've been dealing with internet trolls for the last 11 days. And, I'm not too concerned about that. And I think it kind of plays more to your credit that you could do, a spin on a classic samurai tale that really does pay amazing tribute to 47 Ronin, and then go and do something completely that has violence and has a very hard line and is very, intense and bloody and isn't for kids. And so I think that kind of plays more credit because it shows what you can do as a writer and even as a company. And I don't know how you feel about that, but that's what I get from you versus that you're not a one-trick pony,
Right.
for lack of a better word.
We've got a kids book that I'm hoping to get out in the coming year and a half or so that basically turns my kids into grade school superheroes. We've got I've been working on a script for a manga. I have an artist selected. We just have to get the funding together, and then a few other projects in comics, and then several in role playing stuff. The key thing about with me, where I can't draw at all, and my chosen fields are very art dependent. Crowdfunding has been a real blessing because it actually lets me not only pay for art but pay my artists well, and that's actually incredibly important because that's how you retain talent. That's how you keep consistency, and that's incredibly important in comics, especially. And it's also how you sleep well at night, knowing that you've been treating people with respect they deserve and paying them a fair wage. So yeah, we've only just begun. There's a lot of stories I want to tell. I actually have a to-do list with stories right over here next to my desk, and it's about 2 feet high now. Over the last 5 years, as stories have layered in there, the stuff that we've got. So I might never clear that to-do list. It just may be that when I die one day, 20, 30 years from now, hopefully, people are like, oh, what is this? Oh, wow, this is, what the hell was he thinking?
So to even talk about that, because obviously, one of the things that I see, and I'm seeing it a lot less, but obviously, with a lot of Kickstarters, things move around in comics, people drop talent, and it's nothing personal if you drop a talent where there's a few reasons why talent moves around. Somebody's not making a lot of money and a better project comes along, or they get picked up by DC or Marvel. And if somebody gets picked up by, DC and Marvel and they're working on, your book, it's very hard to say no to that. And even if you have a contract, my philosophy is that if I had a contract with somebody, but they got picked up by DC and Marvel for a 50-issue run, I don't think it's in my best interest to hold them to their contract and deny them just on a moral level, not on a contractual level, because I think I would win that argument if I signed them for 6 issues. But I just think it's a bad goodwill argument. And I don't think it's the right thing to do per se. It's not necessarily the greatest business decision, but that's just how I feel personally. But I also think it's this idea that you brought up a really interesting point about retaining talent. And I have a collaboration with somebody, and it is a 50-50 ownership. And it's not just a 50-50 ownership of all the money we make. in it and there's a contract and all that stuff, it is a 50-50 ownership of what is left over of the item. So we are splitting that down the middle too, and I might lose money on the deal, but I know for a fact that the next time I want to do something, my friend DJ Croft, and I don't think he's going to mind, is going to be gun-ho immediately because I treated him well. And I think that's something that it's a very good lesson for comic people to learn, and even just in business to learn that.
Well, one of the things that I say very often is that with um, crowdfunding, the money to be made is actually not in the crowdfunding. That money needs to be used for development, production, and distribution of rewards. Okay, paying staff, all that. As the owner of the project, you should always be paid last on that. Okay, and the reason I say that is because once you're done with fulfillment, you're going to have product. You're going to have a product that arguably you intended to see put out in the world and sell. So as you're aware, you see behind me boxes of comics, right? Now over the last year, you've been watching those stacks shrink and shrink and shrink. That's 47 Furious Tales issue 2. There were 4,500 copies of that printed. Okay, we've sold about 1,200 physical copies already. So during the pandemic, that is not a bad thing to be in. It's not a bad position to be in at all. So getting your production done and then being able to come out and put product on the shelves, sell to other retailers, sell at conventions, sell through your online venues. These are things that fuel your next project, right? And while that might sound like, oh well, then the next one will do whatever, I think people are forgetting you still have product, right? So 47 Furious Tales is an example. We sell digital copies through Drive Through Comics, and that sells all the time, and whether it's a dollar one month and 150 or 300 or $500 the next month, it's still revenue that's generating for your business. And so I think that one of the things that you have to remember as a creator is to certainly focus on your creation, but don't neglect the business aspects of it too. You need to have that funding coming in. One, so you can eat, obviously, but two, so that you can also expand and continue to explore your horizons. Test yourself, create new, cool, beautiful things, or create new, cool, ugly, horrific things, whatever your jam is, And doing that has had a really positive effect on me. I mean, I have a really fantastic relationship with the artists I work with. Alexia and I particularly have worked together a lot. Nick and I have worked together a lot. Zach Viola. The list goes on and on and on. And I look forward to new books and new projects that fit their particular interests. So, yeah, make the money. Be responsible to your fans and your readers. Be responsible to the people you're working with. And it should never be a question of if you have a contract, always have a contract. And always adhere to it. Pay your people and pay them in real money. And make sure you pay them on time. And that simple little mantra will sustain you. It really will.
So that's one of the things with DJ is that it's not a money deal and it's a product deal. And we both agree to it. And there's nothing wrong with that either if somebody wants product because he's a cosplayer and he doesn't have any product. And so he's getting product out of the deal and he's getting also an equity stake on what is. So it's very different than me paying him up front. He's getting an equity stake. And the reason why is that he has a promotion aspect to it, which is he's fulfilling on that. So it's just a different way how to structure a deal, and it benefits both parties, and we're both happy about it, and we have a contract. And so I'm very happy about that deal, and he's very happy about it too. And That's just something I want to bring up because I think people need to know how things like that work. And it's very, and you know it, and you know, this is like level 3 Kickstarter 101, right?
I'll tell you this too. Read Madeline Holly Rossman's book on Kickstarter. I've told anytime anyone asks me or wants to talk about Kickstarter, I tell them, read that book. That's the first thing anyone should do if you're gonna do Kickstarter or Indiegogo. Read Kickstarter, the crowdfunding book that Madeline Holly Rosson wrote. It is absolutely essential to understanding that for people who haven't done Kickstarters or Indiegogos before. In fact, I recommended it to you the last time I was on the show because it's so well written that I actually was in the process of drafting, I think, my 3rd chapter on my own book on crowdfunding. And I read Madeline's and I just saved my file and I set it away. And I didn't touch it again since because Madeline touched everything I was going to talk about and then some.
I'm going to be the first person and say that I have not read that book yet, and I know I need to. I know I need to. Don't yell at me. I need to. It's on my to-do list.
It'll be my Bitcoin.
Well, I'm going to counter, and I'm going to say that I am still sorry to everybody for the audio. It's just not cooperating with us today. So having said that, I'll take responsibility as the host of this show for that, and the audio. But obviously, I do want to talk a little bit more inside the book because I don't want to ruin too much of this story for those because I got a feeling, I have an idea where it's going, and I don't want to ruin too much because I want people to back it. Anytime you go to Medusa, guys, it's not that hard to back this. It looks like a fun book. It's going to be a good one, but you decided to go black and white. And you mentioned that earlier. And what was that like? Because that's a very different book. It's a very different experience. Obviously, I don't know as far as printing, if it's cheaper to print a black and white book, but I do know that you don't have to color it. So you don't have to pay a colorist at that point. And it also just gives a different feel to it. And good black and white is amazing. I mean, what is it? I think there's like an X-Men book by Jim Lee that the colored version is out there, and then there's a black and white version, and it is 2 separate books completely. So I'm curious the rationale and the thought process and even just taking that risk because I think, as you say, this is your first black and white book.
So the decision to go black and white was actually not financial. It was chronological. And the reason I say that is we wanted to get this book out with a regular cadence. So we're going to be releasing this every quarter. So every 3 months, a new Rayne of Ages. Now, what that means is, particularly for this first book, and by extension the second and the third, because they're that introductory arc that we've built, there actually isn't really sufficient time to have them colored before the campaign starts and still be financially responsible. Because if I were to get it colored, paying that out would take a few months, right? And that's a slow, arduous process. And we'd get, instead of getting 3 or 4 books out a year, we'd get 1, maybe 2. And this is, since this is actually not a limited series, it's going to be an ongoing series. Getting started in that cadence was very important. Now, Nick and I talked about this quite a lot on multiple occasions.
This is my next question, isn't it?
Yeah. And we decided that if the audience growth was sufficient, then we would revisit whether or not we were going to add color beginning in issue 4. And so, pardon me, sorry about that. We know what type of crowdfunding metrics and sales metrics we need to make it possible for us, because we literally have to have basically the entire book done and then get someone to color that book who can color it at the level that we need in the time allotted. And so you can get people to color a book and run people who in some books, people who've never colored a book before will color it. But when you want it to be the best quality possible, you have to hire professionals, and that means paying people professional rates. And since you want it done and looking good and you want it in a fixed timetable, that means you're having to fulfill two of the three pillars of excellence. You know, you have to have it quick and nicely done, which means that it can't be cheap, right? Um, so that's where we look at for four. We could, of course, have said, hey, Nick, color it because he's one of the best colorists I've ever met. But that would have added so much time that literally we'd be down to 1 to 2 books instead of 3 to 4. And it's important to put the book out in a regular cadence so that readers know when it's coming. They are seeing our commitment to the story and to them, and that we're not losing touch with the community. You know, it can be very difficult if there's a long time between your book releases. It really can. So you really want to get those out and get them in people's hands so they can enjoy and read them.
So just to answer Larry, there's an issue going on with the sound on, I think, StreamYard right now, and it's just hit mid episode, and we decided to track on. And so I just want to answer that. You know, I've addressed it earlier on in the entire chat. You know, obviously something's going on here, and I don't know if it's me, I don't know if it's Sam, and we're just doing, you know, our best here. So obviously that's what's going on here with all of this, and we're just tracking on, and I'm not too sure what's going on with all of this.
Yeah, it's weird because this is my third appearance today, and we haven't had this anywhere. So it's strange how it kind of crept up in the middle of the stream.
I have a feeling it's StreamYard, and I have a feeling something's going on with, you know, that, and I'm not exactly 100% sure, you know, how to, you know, fix it, but we're just tracking on, making the best of it, and hopefully all of us and all my audience is just gonna stay with us, you know. That's what we're doing. So anyway, obviously, and I'm actually very curious about, you know, would you consider, because at some point, and I'm presuming you're gonna go into a graphic novel or a trade paperback, would that be an opportunity for the coloring? Because that's what I was thinking.
There's an opportunity there. There are time constraints on it. If for example we were to assemble books 1, 2, and 3 into a trade, you'd be talking about. Let me think for a second. You'd be talking 82 pages. So 3 months to get it colored. You know, and in order to be fiscally responsible, you'd want to produce probably 5,000 copies. I'd have to sit down and do the exact math on it, but ballpark, I'd say probably about 5,000 copies. So right there, you're looking at about $20,000 to raise to make that happen. I mean, not necessarily through crowdfunding. Obviously, you'd have, you know, other income that you're
Multiple streams.
right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it can be done. It would be way beyond anything I've hit currently as far as crowdfunding concerns go. But yeah, it could be done. I would like to. I would obviously like to. I'm a big fan of color. But on the other side, this book is really beautiful as black and white, so it's gonna have to be one hell of a colorist.
I mean, I'm not against black and white, guys. You know, I love black and white comics. Don't get me wrong. I think black and white comics are fascinating. And as I stated, you know, that X-Men book that I'm talking about, it is a different beast than black and white, and it is a beautiful book in black and white. And the black and white is much better, you know. And so that's something that obviously, and I'm just curious because I think it's very cool. And just to show what we're talking about, because I do have pictures. So that's just one picture. There's no letters in it yet. This is another picture, and as you can see, you know, I love that panel at the bottom over there because I just think it's so interesting how it's almost like a silhouette of the characters on the black, and it's just a really nice touch. And I think in color, it would actually take away if that page was colored. And then this is another page that's going on, and I'm glad there's no letters, so you can't get a sense of what's going on in the story, so you're going to actually have to go buy the book to go figure out what's going on with this. But as you can see, there's a lot of stuff going on here. in this book. And so that's why it is sort of very cool in black and white.
And real quick, a quick shout out to Tyler, Brian, John, and Ty who have backed the campaign during this interview. Thanks, guys.
And so obviously I want to go into rewards here because I think this stuff is super interesting. And one of the things that you do is that you have your digital rewards pretty cheaply. And so it's a $3 digital reward. So and you also do it through drive-through comics, which is different than what normal people do and distribute a digital reward through. I think some people do it slightly different. Most people send a PDF through Dropbox or to an email or something of that nature, and you take a different approach. And I don't know how many of my audience knows what drive-through is and the rationale behind it and some thought process, and perhaps having access to comics is a big deal because through Kickstarter it doesn't exactly work if you don't download the comic and save it into a file.
Well, that's one of the things we actually solved by using drive-through comics and drive-through RPG. See, drive-through has been a long-standing member of the RPG and comic community. You have drive-through comics, drive-through RPG, drive-through fiction. They are working to roll all their family of sites into one new interface, but they're still working on it. But they've been in business for years and years and years. One of the nice things about using drive-through for digital distribution is that rather than just putting something in a Dropbox and trying to manage that, what you do is you literally upload your resource to drive-through, and drive-through is going to be a sales point for you anyway. And then they have a mechanism in the publisher toolset where you can distribute the particular title digitally to your backers. And not only does it take and allow them to access it, the way it does it is very handy for long-term access. Because what happens is that you get your email, you go and you accept your download, and you have your comic or your RPG book or what have you. But the thing is that in your drive-through account, that particular book is still accessible in your library. So that if you happen to have a hard drive failure or you download it to your phone and someone steals your phone or what have you, you can still come back to drive-through and pull it down without paying anything on that because it's already in your account. And whether you got something through Kickstarter or bought it straight off the site, it's always going to be accessible for you there. So it's very, very handy in that regards, and it makes digital fulfillment remarkably simplistic. Because all I have to do is just take the emails I gather from the backer rewards survey, drop it into my CSV file and into my utility, and send it out. And I've literally fulfilled digitally for more than 200 people, and had it done in 10 minutes.
Yeah, and I think that's something that's very important that people need to understand is that fulfilling digitally and fulfilling in very fast and efficient because time is money, and anything that you can fulfill fast is always helpful. And if you could save yourself a big headache, especially with digital fulfillment, then why wouldn't you do that? Because I know for a fact that sometimes I don't even see a Dropbox menu. Sometimes I don't even download the digital file, and then 6 months later that box is empty, and it's rather annoying. It's frustrating, and I got a million things going on. So obviously, always having some access to it is very helpful. And then there's also some physical rewards, and so this is the regular cover that's out there.
Yes, that's cover A by Aisha Golson.
And so that's a very cool cover. And then we're going to go into some variants here. And so we have that cover, which is awesome.
And that is the Virgin variant by Nick Capone. He did the line art and the coloring. Now, this is a limited production run. We're only printing 1,000 of these, which I realize for an indie comic sounds like a lot, but it's really not. my company, Sonoma, we have a real simple rule about floppies for comics. We do not reprint covers, so you won't find like this book in its second printing or anything. No, this cover only 1,000 ever.
And then going further into this is you have this cover as well.
Right, that's by J.P. Buzio. He did the line art and the inking, and then Nick Capone actually did the color work on this as well. And we have limited this to only 500 copies. And so that's actually been interesting, especially with some of the retailers we've been working with. We actually had to put a cap on how many of these we were going to let each retailer have. So each retailer are limited particularly to how many they can get based on their order size.
And so to even talk about that, and again, everybody, I apologize for the sound. Usually this doesn't happen. It's probably StreamYard and it's being difficult. So I appreciate everybody watching this, both live and on replay and everything in between. But one of the things that I think is very cool is that when you have 1,000 print run and you have a 500 print run, you're now entering into sort of territory that Zenescope has entered into, and a variety of other publishers where they have these big exclusives, and then there is a limit and there's a collectability aspect to it, because what's going on in comics, and this is me talking on the comic book investing side, is that it used to be mainstream was very much collectible, and now indies have become that entity, and indie books are being picked up and flipped and sold on eBay, and
Yeah, just try getting a copy of Niobe on eBay, see what that's going to run you. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, those Paul Greens are the ones to watch. I don't know if there's any other Niobe book that does as well as the Paul Greens, but those two Paul Greens that Larry has printed do really, really well, where they're really expensive. I know that much.
I see some coming from his next campaign that are going to be just as highly valued as the Paul Greens, to tell you the truth. He's got some really tremendous work coming from those.
So, I mean, I backed his last campaign, Larry, and I'm very excited for that because I've never read Niobe before. So I'm very.
You never read Niobe?
I came across Larry in a unique way, and then I said, "Oh snap!" I backed his campaign while I was interviewing him, and it was great because I sort of liked the book. I liked one of the covers. It was a homage to 607, I want to say, a Spider-Man. So I'm gonna put those two books up next to each other, throw it up on Instagram. It's gonna be a really cool picture. And I couldn't sell my 607 because I bought Larry's. So Larry's cost me like $100 because I just couldn't, like, it would break my heart dramatically. And I'm happy that I'm keeping my 607 because I really like that book. But it's the idea that I've never read Niobe before, so I'm very excited for it.
It's a really good book. It really is. I started with Birthright, and I was really very impressed by the writing.
So I'm very honest that I've never read it before, and I'm very excited for it, and I'm looking forward to it. And then the next one, there's that Justin Hunt cover that I want. As much as I love Keith Garvey, and nothing against Keith Garvey, he's going to come back on the show. Um, that Justin Hunt cover is just right up my alley. It's like the right colors, the right pop, all that stuff. But even as I was stating about the entire comic world, obviously it's becoming very investable now in indie comics, and a lot of stuff's going on, and there's a lot of speculation in the market, and there's going to be winners and losers. I'm very honest about that. But a lot of people are now looking at indie as they're looking at mainstream, and there's a lot of stuff going on. So as a publisher and as a creator, what is that like for you? Because it's got to be a very interesting thing, because on one hand, your books might be going for a lot of money on eBay, but it's also the secondary market to some degree as well.
Well, you're always gonna have a secondary market, so I try not to worry about that too much. The rarity on these books was really more of a factor of budgetary constraints, you know. And then the problem with that though is when you don't have as large a press run, your cost per unit comes up, right? And when your cost per unit comes up, that tends to eat into the margins to recover the money you spent on a particular cover. And so it's a pretty vicious cycle, right? When you have only like 500 copies run or less, you're definitely paying for it. But I mean, when you look at the prices on these tiers, the tiers for Reign of Ages all include shipping within the United States. So if you're in any of the 50 states, that's it. I mean, you don't have to worry about any additional shipping. That's all taken care of in that tier. So with these particular um, issues, these particular covers, we've got one that, of course, the compensation for the artist, which monetary, and I'm a big believer in also providing people with copies as well as money. And there's a few reasons for this. One, you have artists who obviously should have copies of their book that they did a cover for. That's just something every artist should be able to have at least one of. And then two, it affords them another revenue stream on when they are at convention appearances, book signings, things like that, which also tends to work for promotion for the book and the title itself. So you kind of have to weigh what your costs are, and figure out where your price point is in a position where it's not going to be painful. You obviously never want it to be painful to the consumer. So the weird thing is when you look at that book and you compare it to some other titles, I've been told repeatedly I underprice my books, and that's probably true. I probably do. But I want people reading the books, and I price it so that at the goal we have and at the price points we have, we can get the bills paid, and get stuff made. I'm not trying to rake in piles of cash on the Kickstarter or the Indiegogo campaign. I'm trying to get the books made because, as you've seen me do for the last 2 years, I'm going to be selling these books just like I'm selling 47, just like I'm selling Death Comes to Glen Follow, on and on and on, and putting books in people's hands. And the more people who support this and get the book early, the happier I am.
Yeah, I think that's something that people really don't understand. And what you do is that you're pricing fairly in a lot of ways and just trying to get it out there, and you're trying to balance a lot of costs. And I'm in that position with my Kickstarter, and I'm very open about it. Where what's happened to me is there's been a lot of pushback, and I've said it to a lot of people. I said, look, I got to balance my costs. I'm trying to get this thing done. It's expensive to run a podcast. This isn't free per se, and I'm just trying to figure out how I can reduce my costs so that it is actually budgetable right now and that this can continue. And I don't think people fully understand, and they're like, but a lot of other shows are free, and that is true. But my expenses, I'm not overly priced, but I'm also doing a lot of work. It's not like it's nothing is free, and maybe somebody else wants to do this, or maybe they're using Anchor. I have a streaming host. I'm using StreamYard. I do a lot of work, and I'm just trying to figure out how to reduce my costs a little bit, and that's what it is. And I'm making tough choices, and unfortunately that's what it is. And also I'm somewhat in demand as an interviewer right now, and I'm very honest, where last year I rejected over 150 people, and 90 of the people that I rejected were comics. So, and it's not that I take any pride in saying that, it's that legitimately I had to make those decisions. And I was at 172 interviews, and that was even me pushing over my 22 because I was supposed to stop at 150 last year.
Yeah, I mean, every indie comic creator, myself, who's considered a smaller time creator, because I've never hit $10,000 on a crowdfunding campaign. That tends to be the consensus about where you kind of get relegated to the cute category. So I guess I'm cute. Um, but the thing is that we all need to be able to find places where we can get the word out, and you want to find new places and go to your rock solid channels that have been there for a while. And you also want to be on streams that friends are running, and they're trying to get their foot in the door into streaming, doing YouTube or Twitch or what have you. And for example, I honestly, I've lost track of how many appearances I've done in the last 5 days. I really have. This is my third today. I think I did 3 yesterday. I did 4 appearances Sunday. Promoting one book. And that kind of volume hitting different audiences um, is definitely appealing. And every single streamer who's doing that is trying to figure out how they're going to monetize so that they can offset their costs. Because StreamYard for the year is not cheap, and especially if you've got well, I don't think it's cheap anyway. If you've got like many people on there, if you're going to do more than 5 people that you're interviewing, like if you bring on an entire comic product team, you're going to look at 5, 6, 7 people sometimes. Actually, usually, and sometimes even more. If you've got an anthology, you might have 12 or 15 people who are contributing to that book. And that kind of thing means that you would have to cut out people from a team if you're trying to talk to them about it. And so you have to have those paid levels for your utilities, for your tools, to make sure that you're not losing out on bringing the word about this group of people to a larger section of the world, to your own little corner of it. So yeah, I think everyone can understand that. I just think that the key thing is to bring value to the people you're serving. Bring value to the people you're serving, and they'll help you keep the lights on.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I'm very honest about it where I'm like, hey, and I think, I'm not saying I'm perfect, but, I think a bunch of people recognize it and a bunch of people don't. And, if you don't recognize it, what would I say is that why don't, I'm not here to exclude you, but I'm going to deal with everybody who pays first because that's just the way it works is I got to make those decisions to keep the lights on. And also the question is that, and this is the question I've been asking to people, and nobody's answered it privately yet. Is saying if you come on for free, what the next time I run this in season 4, if I prove to you, would you consider to then say, hey, I want to be back on, let me trust you, and then I've had private conversations, and when I explain what I do and how I do it, they're like, I'm gonna buy a spot because they say, oh, you're not coming out of this out of left field. And I think that's something that people need to understand about you in a lot of ways is that, you've done a bunch of crowdfunding campaigns. I think you've done like 11 now, I want to say.
I've actually fulfilled 13 Kickstarter campaigns and one Indiegogo campaign. So this should be my 15th fulfilled campaign. And we should literally, well, actually, there's one more because we actually did fulfill Santa Dragon Clause, even though it did not fund. We sent the digital rewards and the print-on-demand code digital rewards to all of our backers at the end of the campaign, which is a week before Christmas. We missed funding by like $300 or something. It's been a few years, I don't remember exactly. And we fulfilled digitally to everyone who pledged the campaign. That was myself and Zach Viola.
And so obviously, I mean, you bring up, I'm sorry, what were you saying?
We count that one, we're already at 15, but we're not counting that one, so it's 14.
And one of the things that you do is that you bring a lot of value to your campaigns. And I think that's something, obviously, the reason why I wanted to bring up my Kickstarter is that, and you brought up a really great point, is that, I think it's value and I think your audience will find that. And, I think you bring a lot of value with your book and also being reasonable and the digital tier being cheap and all that stuff. And it's very important, I think. And it's also very important that, obviously you've had a campaign that didn't fund and you've had a few of those, but it's about getting back up. The saying is that if you're going to fall down, you might as well land up on your back, is the saying. This way you're looking up and then you can get up. It's a great quote because it's true. And, no matter what happens, you're going to fall and fail. And if you're going to fail and fall, you might as well land on your back because this way you're looking up versus down. And so what is that like? Because obviously I want to help you get funded. I'm not going to make any outrageous claim on this one.
Well, you already have made a pretty outrageous claim before. I'm gonna hold you to it. I'm not, but I tell you what, I know you're building something better, so I'm gonna just tack on no interest, and I'll just wait till next year, and then you can bring me my Bitcoin next year. Anyway, in all seriousness, what it's like when you fail, um, on crowdfunding is much like when you fail on anything. It sucks, but But you cannot, as a creator who's going to continue and make really cool things, you cannot sit there and just wallow in self pity and self doubt. You can't do that because it's entirely counterproductive. Now, what you do is you take and you go back and you look at what went wrong, analyze, find out what's happened. Look at the whole picture. Don't try and pin it on one thing because, especially with crowdfunding, it's almost never one thing that went wrong. It's usually a collage of things that you messed up on. Whether that's how your promotions went, whether that's how your campaign page looked, whether your tiers were off, and sometimes it could be that just the material you're presenting might not be what people are looking for. And in that case, you have to seriously revisit what you're creating. I have a couple of projects that are sitting on the shelf that I have to revise very thoroughly before I think about bringing them back. But when you when you come back and you use the information that you obtained from your previous failure, that does make success sweeter. I'm not gonna lie. This particular campaign, Rayne of Ages, uh, funding this book to 5,000. I was about 95% confident before we launched that we would fund pretty well. I'm now probably about 99% confident that we're going to fund pretty well, and that's both because we're just shy of the 50% mark after only what 8 days, and that we have already seen 112 backers now. Thank you for our latest backer. Actually, you guys are awesome. Big shout out to we have another Tyler. Thank you. So we have multiple Tylers today. Really cool. Thank you. Anyway, with that, and then also as you've become aware in Kickstarter, particularly, you can go back and look at your metrics. And we have well over 200 people who have saved this campaign who haven't yet pledged to it, which means that those last 48 hours, we should see a very large influx of people coming in. Now, personally, I think we'll probably be funded before those last 48. I would expect probably probably about a week before the campaign, all things considered. And that's not some mystic mumbo jumbo about, hey, well, we're going to hit the halfway point here tonight or tomorrow morning, and that means we're going to do it. No. What it means is that I've been working, and so not just on making appearances, but I've been working with retailers. I have been working with people who I know who are frequent supporters who are resellers at conventions, and who also um, just are huge collectors, a couple of big collectors. And the nice part about that is that I already know that we've got a few $100s more just in retailers who are waiting to pledge when we finalize a few things on our orders on that. That's going to put us a big bump. And every one of those pledges counts. Every $3 pledge gets us another big step closer. Every $15 gets us another step closer. And the goal of $5,000 is actually not very high for a Kickstarter. With this one, it's a little bit tougher because again, the tiers are pretty low. You know, you don't often get a print copy of a book for $15. Not for 32 pages. That's not very common. But being able to get that together and get that out, yeah, I think we're probably about 99% likely to succeed, and we're going from that premise, which is why we're lettering now. It's why I'm already ordered proofs. It's why we're going to be ordering the final copies probably on the 26th or the 27th or the 25th, and the campaign doesn't end until the 28th. So I mean, yeah, people are going to get this book. They're going to be reading the digital, the day after the campaign closes, or maybe the day after that, depending on when they respond to the backer survey. And for people getting print copies, they're going to have it on its way to the mail in them in about 2 weeks after the campaign closes, and they should see it a few days after we mail it out. It's been very carefully planned. carefully engineered, and I'm hoping that we're going to learn a lot, not just from our production cadence, but also from fulfillment cadence.
Yeah, no, it's very interesting, and obviously, I think you're gonna fund because my experience is that once you reach the 50% mark, the funding increases dramatically, and you get out there, and it's just the likelihood of you funding is more, and obviously, a lot of people are liking this, and I think you have a lot more, people who save the project and checking it out, which is the last 48 hours are always big in Kickstarter and things like that. So,
And like I said, the real thing too is the work you put into it. Kickstarter is all about the effort that you make, both in the creation of what you're creating and in the effort you put into your campaign. People have to know how much you believe in it, how excited you are to it, and just how much blood, sweat, and tears put into it to make sure that they get a good experience. Comics, art, role-playing games, novels, all of those on Kickstarter. When you really look at it and you see the passion of the creator and how well they've planned to get their fulfillment out, that's a big deal. And I think that one of the things we're also going to see um, and over the next few years particularly, we'll see more and more crowdfunding platforms come into being. And I'm not going to get preachy about this, but I would expect a couple of main social media channels to develop crowdfunding options within them. And then I think that what you're going to see is more of the same what we're seeing right now, where Kickstarter and Indiegogo are cracking down on creators who have been who have not yet fulfilled prior campaign obligations. I guess is the best way to put it. And to the extent that Indiegogo has made a statement about that, Kickstarter's made several statements about that, and I think they're very serious about it because you can go to half of the podcasts and YouTube channels in the world that touch on Kickstarter and Indiegogo, and half the time the joke is, I pledged the campaign, I gave money I'll never see, and that's really hard to hear when you put hours and hours and hours of work into making sure that every campaign fulfills. But it's the truth. There are campaigns that have been unsuccessful, have been mismanaged, and haven't fulfilled. The fun part I can tell you is that my campaigns fulfill. So
and look, I mean, I don't know if I'm going to be fulfilling. I don't know if I'm going to be successful. If I'm successful, I will be fulfilling. No question about it. Even if it's a loss of money on my end, that I will be fulfilling. But I don't know if I'm going to be successful. And while I'm at 513 right now, I'm very honest where it is a very tough road up into where I'm going and all that stuff. And
well,
so that's something that
most people don't make money on the Kickstarter. And that's just true. Most people don't make money on the Kickstarter. You have your own investment, not just your investment of time, your investment of money too is often very significant. There are hundreds and hundreds of dollars that went into art for this campaign months before we even built the Kickstarter campaign. And the same is true for 47 Furious Tales and for all of the RPG stuff. You can't you can't just say, well, I finished this campaign and I lost like $300 and let cash you down, because you're going to turn around and you're going to make that back almost immediately just through sale of product, or in your case through population of services. I mean, think about this. I mean, you've got picked up from Mixum for what, 40 more episodes, right?
yes.
So I mean, just the cost offset alone on that, between that and the crowdfunding alone, should be enough to help keep more money in your pocket. But I mean, I'm gonna get back to Rayne Agents for a moment. With this one, this is a campaign where we've been promoting this for months, and not just online through social media. We took and produced hundreds of promotional cards. This is actually an image we're using for one of the stretch goals as well. But we gave these out at conventions, festival at supporting comic shops, and really put the word out to let people know something special was coming. And we wrote it, we edited it, we sweated over it. We did, Nick was slaving over character design, and then he put digital pen to paper and created some absolutely fantastic sequentials. I'm going to tell you straight up, Andrew, I am incredibly proud of this book, and I think people are going to love it, and I think people are going to love the series, and I hope they'll take opportunity to pledge the campaign, not just because I think that, not just because I need it to fund, obviously, but also because I think that once this book is in their collection, it's going to be something they're going to cherish in their collection. Um, it would be the height of hubris for me to say this is like the next Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or something like that, or to speculate that would be worth money in the future. But more importantly, I think it's going to be something that people will look back on and enjoy reading, and something they'll enjoy coming back to and reading again. And I hope, and I tell this to my backers, I hope that Reign of Ages and 47 Furious Tales and all my other books, I hope that they enjoy these for years to come. And yeah, that they legitimately find a treasured place in their collections. Um, because that kind of thing is important. That thing has value. You might not be able to weigh it or measure it and calculate it on your taxes, but honestly, truthfully, the satisfaction and happiness of your fellow man, that's worthwhile.
Yeah, I think that's something that people don't understand is that a lot of what I'm doing now with Kickstarter is that while I like picking up variants because I like looking at the art and at some point, and I'm very honest that everything is for sale in my collection at some point or another. But, I pick up a cool Niobe book and I'm throwing Larry some love here, even though he sort of left because we're having some audio issues, which I apologize again to everybody. Obviously, sometimes things happen. StreamYard is acting up with me today. But, one of the things is that at some point that book will be for sale, but I'm not looking to sell that book the second I get it. I'm looking to enjoy that book, have it in my collection, and then 5, 6 years down the road, maybe, and that's something that I think a lot of people, when I buy a book on Kickstarter, I'm looking to read it, I'm looking to enjoy it, I'm looking to have a good time. I'm also looking to support people. I bought that book, and I'm very honest, where, while comics are competition and money is, everybody has a finite source of money in a lot of ways. I also want to support people on Kickstarter, and that's the other thing too, is that not everybody, sometimes somebody needs that support to get over the hump. And so when I buy books, I'm willing to say, hey, it's $15. Let me help you get over the hump of something. So that's how I feel about certain books and all sorts of stuff with that.
Yeah, I mean, it really is a matter of the community coming together and making really wonderful things happen. Could you imagine if crowdfunding didn't exist and maybe we didn't have Carmen America, right? Or maybe we didn't have Billy Tushy's latest She or all these years of top Lady Death comics. I mean, really, that's something that I think about sometimes. What difference it made um, to to really help comic creators and role playing game creators and such to be able to create their works in such a way that they aren't immediately impoverished by it. You know what I mean? Because let's face it, comics will break your heart, kid. Is the saying, and it's pretty true. Um, there's tales of a lot of creators, even people who are working at Marvel and DC, having significant financial difficulties because of what the current pay rates. And creating your own book and owning that and getting it out, that's a big deal and a good way to help keep the lights on and keep food in your gut. So as the side effect for those of us who are helping support those folks is that yeah, we get a new Lady Death comic, we get a new She comic, we get Carmen America, we get Niobe, we get Chefs or the Girl with the Megafists, we get Max DeVille creates so many different comics that you can't just name just one. So you've got Neo Tokyo, you've got Human Hunters, you've got Mary Machine Gun, you've got the Ninja Bimbos versus Space Zombies, and I keep mangling the title on that. But you get the idea. All these really cool comics that come out, and all the fantastic games that have come out, like Exploding Kittens, for example. Um, these are things that just wouldn't have been possible if these people with these fantastic ideas had been constrained to let those ideas fade away because they just didn't have the money to get a press run. Done.
It's very, very important. I think that people don't understand is that, Niobe and wouldn't be funded without, somebody like me and somebody like you backing it and a variety of other people backing it where it definitely matters. And, a lot of books, I mean, I even think, Big Dog Inc. in a lot of ways. Tom Hutchinson, a lot of his stuff wouldn't be funded. I just had Jim Noble on last night and, Totally Rad Comics, I don't think would be working without people saying, hey, I want to back this. And then obviously exceeding $20,000 because that really shows that people want it and that the more money that is put into that project, the further that company goes. And he's a great example because he said that last night when I had him on. So I think that's something that people really need to understand is that they're not just backing Reign of Ages. They're going to get a great story, but they're also backing you. They're backing, your entire company. They're backing you as a writer. And that's what people need to understand when they're backing. It's not anymore the comic.
Yeah, and the truth is, at 5,000, you won't see me with any cash on this. I'll be getting a lot of books, and then I'll make money from that. And the same is pretty much true with Nick as well. He'll have a whole mountain of books to go forth and sell at his appearances and whatnot. But the other thing too, and this is something I'm particularly happy about, is with the support that we've gotten from retailers, both through Kickstarter campaigns and outside of them, has meant, like, especially when the pandemic first hit and Diamond stopped shipping. Well, the United States Postal Service kept shipping, and so we kept shipping. And so, yeah, we shipped books to shops that were hurting for product, and that was a great thing to see. It was great to see that we could make a difference. Now, a lot of shops just closed, and some of them never reopened. But the ones who stayed in and tried to fight and keep moving merchandise, we shipped as many books as we can to as many of them as who would have us. And that's actually been really good for us because now we have really good relationships with a lot of different stores. And when we ship it to them, they can. But one of the things that does, and as someone who's familiar with the basic tenets of business and shipping, you'll appreciate this. Shipping 20 or 30 or 60 or 100 comics is far cheaper than shipping one comic when you look on a price per unit basis. Because I mean, literally, you can get shipping costs down as low as I think 22 cents is as low as I've gotten it. Shipping one, but I mean I shipped like 300 comics to this one location. And that makes a huge difference because when they put it on their shelf and they are, getting that book at like a wholesale price where they're discounted about 50% or so, being able to put that book on the shelf and sell it at a regular comic price and make money that even with Diamond, where it's dependent about how much you order, is how much your discount level is. I mean, that's helpful, And so,
I mean, I could give some cool facts on something that just happened. You know Travis Gibb, right? So I just got a while back, and I'm now selling through Travis's merch, and he sold it to me about 10 books at $35. So Cthulhu Invades Wonderland and some Voodoo Nation and some of that stuff, and like some really cool, like like Stan Yak and a variety of really cool covers, like the good stuff.
right.
So I just sold a Cthulhu Invades Wonderland book for 20 bucks, but I got it at such a wholesale price that I'm going to be making about 100 bucks on 35. And it makes a huge difference when you actually start buying at what retailers bought it at. And so What Travis didn't understand, what I was trying to explain to him, is that I want to buy 100 copies because I'm moving so much merch in my eBay store that I have the problem that I have run out of free promo books. And so I want to throw Travis's book, and if he sells me 50 copies of a book, it's $2. I'm just going to throw that right into it for free, because I need promo books dirt cheap. So I have a problem in my eBay business where I don't have books anymore that are like dollar books to move out as bonus books when people buy a $50 extra book or that they spend a certain price point. And that's a problem I have. And so I'm looking for that on a retail level on a Kickstarter, is that I'll buy a bunch, and even if it's $1.50 or $2, I need that merch. And that's where I'm at, not to sell, but as a bonus book because it's good for business for me.
Yeah, you should probably look at Pete Samedi and Alternative Comics and look at retail accounts there. I think that would do very well for you. The books are on newsprint, so they have a lower price point anyway, and so buying in bulk could do some good for you.
But it makes a huge difference is what I'm going with when you're buying something at wholesale, because there's a lot of money that can be made when you're selling and you have those virgins and variants and like the 1 of 5s and things like that, where all of a sudden I now can actually be competitive on his books. And so who do you think when he has another Kickstarter on a comic, not on a trade because I don't want to sell trades, but when he has another one, I'm buying, or another retail package, and I'm probably going to go bigger and say, hey, dude, I'm making money with your books. And while it takes me 9 months to make money with your books, I don't care if it takes me 9 months to make money because I'm getting my money back. And that's the other thing about comic shops that is very important, is that the last thing I think anybody wants to do is not return capital.
Yeah, the thing with shops is, I've told this to a lot of other creators, is you've got to get your price points where it makes sense that they're making money on it. I had one gentleman I was talking to about that. He said, well, my books are $20 a piece. And it was a floppy with 24 pages, and he was selling it for $20. I'm like, why are you selling it for 20 for $20? He's like, well, that's what it cost me to print. I'm like, what? So the first thing we did was find him some printers in his area that weren't going to scalp him constantly. And so yeah, we actually ended up hooking him up with Mixum, and his book is going to cost him, I think, $1.05 to print in bulk. So I mean, just on its surface, it's so much more sustainable, and getting into shops will be a lot easier for him. And some people will tell you, well, you're helping competition. I just don't think of it that way. The market for comics is so huge and so diverse. There's really no one who does a samurai comic that's exactly like mine. I think that probably the best martial art featured, martial art feature comic right now is probably put out by Henri Kaufman. Um, is just my opinion. I think that we are doing a really good job with 47 Furious Tales, but I have to give credit where credit's due. Henri is absolutely amazing, and he's been doing it for a long time, and he's really honed his craft. And I think that diversity in titles, that diversity in subject matter and in styles, is one of the things that keeps comics alive. It keeps us really stretching ourselves and our creativity to make something that's cool, not just to push past different degrees of one trope or the next, but to actually do stuff that excites us. It's like the first time you pick up a copy of the X-Men, and you're reading for the very first time the Dark Phoenix saga, or the whole thing through the Siege Perilous, or some of those classic stories, that really, really stick to the series decades later. And with that, that's a really good example of people pushing themselves and honing their craft and just making cool stuff. And I think when it all comes down to it, we're just making cool stuff.
I mean, I could tell you that I buy cool stuff I'm getting a book tomorrow, and it's nothing like your book, but it's, I think, one of the best concepts ever, and it's an awesome 80s comic that's done just recently called Shotgun Samurai. And it's done in the manga style, and it's this guy, instead of a sword, he has a shotgun, and it's by a Dashel, forget it, I don't know how to say his last name. Awesome book, nothing to do with 47 Furious Tales. It's not in competition with your book,
No,
but
they're completely different.
it's a bitchin' 80s book. It is not a traditional samurai book. And I said to him, he has to sell the rights to Hollywood because that's the movie we all want. When it comes down to it, I'm sorry. I don't need 47 Furious Tales as a movie right now. I need Shotgun Samurai.
No, you need 47 Furious Tales as an anime, is what you need. 47 Furious Tales would be far better as an anime than it would be as live action. And I think anyone who says otherwise is.
That is true. That is true. But I need a live action of Shotgun Samurai. I just do because I'm gonna go see that movie 50 times. Legitly, I will go see it, and then I will go order the Blu-ray while I'm in the theater because it'll be that good. Because it'll be awesome. Come on, tell me your inner child doesn't want Shotgun Samurai as a movie. It doesn't have to be a good movie.
See Shotgun Samurai as a movie. I would like to see Niobe as a movie. I would actually really, really like to see Human Hunters as a television series. I think Human Hunters would be really good for that. Boston Metaphysical Society would be an absolutely fantastic animated series. And the same thing for Miskatonic High. I mean, there's so much depth in these titles that you could just have so much fun playing in them and through so many other different media. And eventually, I think you'll see some of these titles make it that far.
Yeah, I think there's a bunch of stuff coming. I mean, look, Black Sands was just on Shark Tank, and I don't know how I feel about that, where I don't know how that deal is going to go. I don't know the full evaluation. I'm very curious because I didn't see the pitch, but their economics concern me, their evaluation concerns me. But, I mean, I think they're paving a way for something, but also, that's just, I would like to see what they do. But I think it's kind of crazy where they raised like $1 million on 5%, and then they raised 500,000 on 30. And if I'm an investor, I'm saying, what the fuck? Just on a business level, I have a million questions, and I think there is fair criticism on that because if you raised $1 million on a 5% evaluation of your company, which means it's a $20 million valuation, and then you're raising another 500,000 at 30, that means the evaluation after money burning through a mill is 1.5 million, give or take. There's a lot of confusion and a lot of questions on that evaluation. You're still muted.
So I don't watch Shark Tank. I've seen it once. Don't get me wrong, guys. It's not something I really follow. But yeah, I mean, the monetary, the monetary elements of any property when it migrates into bigger media, i.e., television, animation, movies, and whatnot, that can be very, very, very daunting. I hope eventually, one day, if you said to me that in 10 years I'd have $100 million or what have you, I would open a very small animation studio. For real. And I can't draw,
So,
but
so
I would write and
yeah.
produce comics and cartoons and role playing
I'm,
stuff. And
So I just want to clarify, I'm not beating down Black Sands. I'm not attacking them. I just have a million questions about that deal, and I've seen the video, and something is just weird with it. And maybe they can answer all my questions, and I'm speaking out of my ass a little bit, but I've only seen like the ending to it, and it's very confusing what happened. And
you know, here's the thing about stuff like that. When you have many questions, that's a sure sign you're lacking a lot of information. And so just dig into the information that's available. And I mean, it's a curiosity, it's a mental exercise, but in the end, I wouldn't let it stress you because how is it going to exactly affect you? What is it going to gain or harm you?
Oh, I'm just fascinated by it. That's all. I think it's interesting, and also I like to spot trends, and that's why I'm interested in it because I like to know where comics are going and what even the path is. Because obviously, when somebody goes and gets on Shark Tank, and then they're a comic company, and then they're an animation studio, I like to say, "Hey, is this the direction we're going in?" As a, and I think that's a fair position to take.
For me, I think rather than try and get venture capital, I think I would honestly rather get funding to do something like that from the fans. Crowdfunding has been really, really good to me. And here's the funny part: people who watch this may go out and they'll add up all of the campaigns I've had that have succeeded, and they'll be like, "Wow, there's not even $50,000 over the course of 5 years here. How has this been good to them?" Because I've made remarkable stuff. I've commissioned art from people who have turned in just beautiful, beautiful pieces. And the other thing too is, like I've said many times before, the money isn't in the Kickstarters and in the Indiegogos for me. The money is in the subsequent sales. That's where I see my revenue. And I'm sorry, but it's working for me.
Yeah, so I think with my project, and I tend to agree with that. So I'm going to be producing a metal card. Probably that's going to be a bit of a tough sale, but I think I'm going to do it right on those sales. Because it's of a cosplayer, and I think I'm going to do it right. But I think where I'm going to make my real money is that obviously I sell ad space, and I'm going to have a lot more ad space. And I think what's going to happen is that when I'm running live ads, I think, and those ads convert and people get interested, people will be like, oh man, you ran a Kickstarter and you have live ads. Maybe we can figure something out here. And then also, I think there's attraction, and then people are also getting interested. I mean, out of this campaign, and if this campaign fails, I got Larry Welts coming on, and he did Cherry. I mean, I got that out of this campaign because I threw out my Kickstarter and somebody was like, hey, do you want to interview Larry Welts? And, obviously, I think that there's a lot of people who are saying, I didn't know you existed. And I'm going to be, I don't know everybody's book. But some people are very interested, and I'm very interested in having them on possibly when all the paid people get taken care of first, if I get funded. And so that's another benefit where I am definitely getting a lot of attention, and maybe that's not money, but also I think, the guest quality is getting a little bit more interesting because people are like, hey, I got this really cool book coming out. So
We'll try not to be offended by that.
well, I'm not offended by that. I'm offended by people saying,
We'll try not to be offended by that. The guest quality is getting more interesting. Thanks, Andrew.
hey,
I am
hey,
top river. The top
I
river of any.
you asked to be on, and I said yes. So you should
Yep,
just take the victory.
I did actually. I did indeed. Oh, here comes the abuse section of the stream. I know that look. I know that look. Where's my money, Andrew? Where's my money?
Okay, so I'm just going to say this very, very politely, and then I'm going to say this once. After last night and my interview before you, I will be surprised if I have a sponsor by Thursday.
Really? I mean, I think I'm actually a good poster child for Mixum. I print through Mixum, and I print a lot through Mixum.
I think I'm a good poster child for Mixon too because I brought them a lot of money, and they like me a lot right now because I brought them a lot of money and I brought
You
them
know
a
what
lot of
is
clients.
really cool about Mixum? You want to see something really cool about Mixum?
Yeah, let's show what Mixon can do so I can TikTok this.
I'm gonna share this screen, and then we're going to. Can you see that?
Yeah, we could see it.
So this is the preview that was generated for the proof copies I'm having printed. And Mixum's interface will let me interact with it so I can see what the book is looking like according to the data sets. And so I can come in here and literally flip through the pages and see what Reign of Ages issue 1 is going to look like. Now, this particular proof doesn't have the lettering on it. I got this done because I want to look at the contrast level specifically, since it's a black and white book, and make sure I don't need to make any adjustments before we order. What are we ordering? Almost 5,000 copies in total, because that would be bad, you know. So getting it done right the first time means checking our work, and with that tool, I was able to come in and take a look at it. This will actually test the resolution values also when you upload it, and if you have a low DPI on the page, like maybe you've accidentally uploaded like a PNG that you put together to use for like social media promotion or such instead of the actual base file. If it's below, I think 150 DPI, it will send a warning to you, and then you can go in and swap out the file with a corrected one. But yeah, Reign of Ages, issue 1, in all its violent, gory glory.
Yeah, no, it's gonna be good, guys. It's gonna be good, and we'll go right
And that's
there.
a really handy feature. I mean, it is. It's just a really handy feature.
And I'm not ready to print a book, but I'm looking to publish something in March, April is when I'm gonna run it, and I'm gonna have a fun time with it. And
Before you go to print, talk to me, okay? Seriously, before you go to print, talk to me, just so that I can look over the metrics you're looking at, because there are mistakes that can creep up that can really hurt you. So let's just take a look at it and make sure that everything looks right.
I have a feeling you're gonna have a very, very, very interesting criticism for my book. And I'm looking forward to what you have to say about it. And it's some of my best writing
Okay.
I've ever done.
I'm the lines of making sure that the bleeds are set correctly, that the layout's legible, that everything comes in where you need it.
Oh, the layout is something
Looking at
else.
print files. We're talking about looking at print files, because here's the thing: you can have the best book in the world, and if people can't read it, you got a problem, kid.
I think people are going to read it loud and clear. It's an
Right.
easy read. I promise. I promise. You know, let's just say Blank Spaces by Taylor Swift is only slightly better.
I don't know that one.
It's all right. It's all right. Once you read my book, you will understand the joke, and everybody will see this. You will reference this on TikTok.
Oh, okay. All right.
I give it all the clues away, and then when everybody goes back to this,
I'm good. I'm good.
yeah.
Oh,
But anyway, obviously we've been speaking for a while. We've toughed this interview out. You know, I don't quit anytime soon. I'm no quitter when I do interviews. And again, I'm just going to apologize for the sound. Obviously, this happens sometimes. I am not perfect, but I've toughed it out. Sam's toughed it out. And, you know, this is the True Believer one. This is the True Believer Toughing It Out podcast. We're going all the way here tonight, where we made it work, right?
yes, indeed. And guys, seriously, come on out, check out Reign of Ages. Look it over. I think you're gonna find that it really is a very, very beautiful book.
So, having said that, and you're kind of segueing right into what I want to talk about, which is where can people find you, promotion, obviously check you out on Facebook, social media, websites, Kickstarter, anything else that they need to know, or let's say this book, they look at it like, hey, it's not for me, you know, where can they support you and get other things? Because every book just from your company that's, you know, a role-playing game or another comic helps to support your entire empire that you're building.
Right. And so you can find me on Twitter at Sinopa Publishing, on Instagram as Sinopa Publishing, and on Facebook as Sinopa Publishing, or me personally as William Samuel Quinton on Facebook. On Kickstarter as WS Quinton, and the Sinopa Publishing page on Kickstarter as well. And we have our primary sales point is actually Drive Through Comics and Drive Through RPG. We will be adding Amazon hopefully this year, as long as everything works according to plan. And then also we'll be engaging in a few different titles that'll be put on for print on demand through some other sites that are pretty well tracked. We are looking at Gumroad as well. I haven't made a decision on that yet, but I welcome people's comments and experience with that platform too.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on with you, and I've been saying it, as my internet sort of going in and out. Again, I apologize to everybody. Today is not StreamYard and my internet and my day with this interview. Clearly, I admit defeat, but I'm not quitting. We're going to fight to the very end. We're fighting to the very end as our ship goes sinking into the, bay, for lack of a better word.
Everything, and just I'll leave you guys with this one thing, right? In a world where you can be anything, you choose to be kind.
That's good. That's good. I'm just saying that my sink is ship sinking, and I'm willing to swim to shore. And hopefully, the rest of my crew will join me on the beach. So I heard there's some treasure there. But anyhow, as I was saying, you really should support indie comics. It is important. It's not just you're supporting the book. There's a lot of really cool books in indie comics. You're supporting the writer. You're supporting teams, and you're also supporting the idea that somebody, especially on Kickstarter, needs the funds 99% of the time to make the book happen. And most projects on Kickstarter can't do it without you. I'm in that boat. Sam's in that boat. And so obviously go actually back it, whether it's $3. Hey, you could throw $1 without any reward. And you know what it is? It goes a long way. There's people who have thrown $1 and it actually means something to me because it goes a long way. And there are people who have thrown bonus support. There's somebody who threw $10 and they don't want a reward. And I'm like, you want a live read, man? Be my guest. I'm more than happy to. And there's people who are throwing bonus support saying, look, I want this and I want to throw another $20 onto this. And I have, things that you could add on backer kit. And like, no, I don't want anything else from you, man. I just want to make it so that you succeed. And so it goes a long way. And so obviously that's something that you should do is that you could go pick up a digital book unless you got an extra $2. Throw those $5 in just for a digital copy. It goes a long way and it makes things happen. And then also share it out, tweet about it, express it, tell people, if you have a show and you're watching this, actually invite Sam on because that's helpful. And a variety of other things. And, just let people know that you backed it. Or even just let Sam know that you backed it. Say, hey, I know we're not Facebook friends, but hey, man, I backed your project. I'm looking forward to it. It goes a long way. And then also social media. Obviously, Sam mentioned all of his social medias. Go actually follow all of them and at least one of them because that also helps tremendously. And a variety of other things. And check out the website too because you never know what you might find. And I'm sure that if there's something you want from Sam and it's not on there, I'm sure there's something that could be worked out. Sam's a pretty accessible guy. So if you're looking for something and, Sam has it, I'm sure he'll sell it to you. No problem in some fashion or other. So obviously, keep that in mind, everybody. Also, I'm just going to promote myself a little bit. Obviously, I got a Kickstarter going on. It's not a comic. It's a podcast. I can't really do my podcast stuff without everybody. This is not free to run. I appreciate all support. I got everything from a $6 tier to a $500 tier. And everything in between. I got a really cool thing. I'm just going to tout this out. This is my metal card. It's going to be shiny. It's very indicative of me. It is the Pop Anime Comics elf. And she is getting a sister at some point this year for Conversations in Pop Culture. So she will not be necessarily on the next metal card. And that's my friend DJ Croft. So DJ is a really cool cosplayer who's just on a major Twitch show and very cool. And he's a superstar in the cosplay world who's going to do some really cool stuff in the next few years. That metal card's $12, guys, and I am printing 121 of them. So obviously, and they are being printed because one person bought it so far. So I'm going to be delivering for that one person, and I'm willing to spend $150 for one person. So if you want a metal card and you want to just help me out a little bit, buy a metal card, guys, because that's my jam, and I love metal cards. But you don't have to buy anything if you don't want to, but I appreciate all support. And on that note, that's what I have going on. Mixum's great. If you're printing books, use them. Andrew Davis, 5% off. That's important. BCW Supplies, Pop Anime Comics, 10% off. And that's pretty much everything I got. But seriously, go back to Sam's Kickstarter. Back mine too while you're at it, because I need the money just as Sam needs the money. And it's all about the money, guys, and about producing good quality products for the comic community. And on that note, I'm going to give you the final word, Sam.
I want to say thanks to everyone who hung with us this long, despite some of our funny moments. And thank you all for your time, your attention. I hope you have a wonderful evening, day, or morning, whatever you're watching us. Keep an eye on Andrew, because he does bring some wonderful people on his show. And show your support, and have a wonderful, wonderful day.
And on that note, that is a wrap.